Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Natoya and I'm here to help you start budget traveling. So in this video guys, I'm going to talk about the mistakes I made in Croatia and what you should avoid doing while traveling here. So I've been traveling Croatia for 6 weeks. I went to Zagreb, Pula, Zadar, Dubrovnik, Split, Kastela. I might be missing one. I went to many cities all over Croatia. And I came up with this list of all the mistakes that I made based on those experiences. So guys, before we begin, make sure you download my checklist in the description to help you plan your trip to Croatia on a tight budget. And this video is a part of my series, How to Travel in Croatia on a Tight Budget. I'll link it in the description and I'll link it above. All right, so let's get started. So the first mistake I made when traveling to Croatia, well, this was actually before traveling to Croatia, is that I took the wrong COVID test. So if you've seen my video, How to Travel in Croatia in 2021, I'll link that above. I talked about the huge mistake I made that made me delay my trip for about a week. And the mistake I made was that I was first flying to Ireland, and to get into Ireland, I needed to take the RT-PCR test. But Croatia, as you know, it just requires the antigen test. You can take the RT-PCR test too, but Ireland requires you to have the RT-PCR test. So what I did was that I just took the antigen test. So when I arrived to the airport to take my flight to Ireland, and then I would take the connecting flight to Split, I was denied entry onto the plane because I had the wrong test. So if you're flying directly to Croatia, then it's good. Get the antigen test, but chances are you're not. You're taking a connecting flight from the US. Is just way cheaper that way. Be sure that the country that you're landing in, that you're taking a connecting flight to Croatia, you have the right PCR test, and make sure that, first of all, you're even allowed in that country, because many countries are still closed to Americans. The next mistake to avoid in Croatia is taking a taxi off the road. Avoid catching a taxi off the road because they will overcharge you. And when I say overcharge you, I mean 3 to 4 times that you will be charged using Uber or Bolt. And by the way, Uber, I recommend using Uber and Bolt to get around Croatia. It's super cheap and it's the same way as, and you use the app the same way you would in the US. The next mistake you should avoid in Croatia is getting off at the wrong bus stop when taking the long distance bus. So when I was going from Split to a city outside of Zadar, the bus stop we got off at was much closer to the house than the Zadar bus stop, which is a bigger, larger bus stop. And I thought this was a great idea until I arrived at the bus stop and realized it was like in the middle of nowhere. It was literally on the highway, and it was difficult for the taxi driver to meet us. It was just a pain in the butt. And it ended up that my Airbnb host had to come pick us up from where we were. It was just horrible. Make sure whatever bus stop you choose, that it's not in the middle of nowhere and that you can easily get a taxi or public transportation. The next mistake I made in Croatia is that expecting that every room would have an AC. So on the Airbnb listing, it would say that there's AC in the apartments. But what I assumed was that there would be an AC all over the house. But the reality was that most of the apartments, I think except one, there's just one AC to cool the entire house. Now, it wasn't a huge deal for us because we let all the doors open so the AC air can circulate through the house. But if you're traveling with like a group of friends, it's a 3-bedroom apartment and you're traveling with like 6 people and you want your privacy, then it becomes a problem. So just make sure you message your host just to see if there's AC in every room, or just have a conversation with the people you're traveling with to let them know like, hey, we have to keep our doors open so the air can get in. The next mistake I made in Croatia was that assuming or expecting there to be a dryer in the house just because there's a washer in the house. So it's not common for the Airbnbs in Croatia to have a dryer. We just went to one Airbnb out of 8 that had a dryer. So what we had to do was to hang the clothes on a line. And actually, to be honest, it wasn't a big of a deal. We got used to it. And because it's so hot in Croatia during the summer, the clothes would dry in like 2 to 3 hours. So it wasn't a big deal at all. But I'm just letting you know, just because there's a washer, don't expect there to be a dryer. So the next mistake you should avoid in Croatia is not having a debit card with a chip. So to make purchases in Croatia, you need to have a card with a chip that you can tap or stick it into the machine. And that's actually for most of Europe. So just make sure your debit card has a chip. And also make sure that you're allowed to use your debit card here in Croatia. So about a week before coming here to Croatia, I found out that my Chime card I cannot use it in Croatia. So make sure that you can use your debit card here, because that would just be the worst thing in the world if you arrive in Croatia and realize that you have no access to your money. The next mistake to avoid in Croatia is not having coins for the bathroom. So I spoke about this in my video. I'll link it above on tips for first-time travelers to Croatia. But in Croatia, you have to pay to use like public bathrooms. I don't mean bathrooms in like tourist sites or restaurants. I'm talking about bathrooms in like public spaces, like for example, the bus station. So it's just about 3 to 4 kunas to use the bathroom. And to recognize where a public bathroom is, you would see WC. So if you're walking around exploring Croatia and you need to use a bathroom, look out for WC and make sure you have some change. The next mistake to avoid in Croatia is expecting to be seated when you arrive at a restaurant. So when I first got to Croatia, I was doing this really awkward thing where I would enter the restaurant, just kind of stand there waiting to be seated. No, you just have to go sit and the waiter will come to you. I know this is something that's common in the US. It's something we really got used to. But in Croatia, if you're at an average restaurant, just enter and sit and your waitress will come to you. But if you're at maybe a fancy restaurant where you have to make reservations, then you might have to be seated. But like I said, I've traveled all over Croatia for 6 weeks, and your average restaurant, you just go in and sit. The next mistake to avoid in Croatia is expecting traffic to stop for you so that you can cross the street. This is another kind of awkward thing I did when I was in Croatia. If you need to cross the street, just go to the correct pathway to cross the street and just start walking, and the traffic will stop for you. Do not just awkwardly stand there on the sidewalk hoping that traffic will stop for you, because they won't. And I did that so many times. The next mistake to avoid in Croatia is packing a large, heavy luggage, because guess what? You are going to have to carry that thing around. So like I said in my video, what to pack for Croatia, I'll link it above and below. I do not recommend you overpacking for Croatia. Make sure you pack as much as you can carry up a flight of stairs, because a lot of the Airbnbs you're going to stay at, they probably don't have an elevator, and Croatia is very hilly. So you will have to carry that yourself. So for example, my apartment in Dubrovnik, it was a journey just to get to that apartment. We had to walk up a hill just to get to the apartment, and we had to walk up a huge flight of stairs just to get to the apartment. So my advice is to make sure you pack what you can carry, especially during the summertime. You will have to deal with the summer heat, and that's just a pain in the butt. The next tip is to make sure you always have cash on you, because some restaurants in Croatia only take cash. Now, I've only been to one restaurant for the whole 6.5 weeks that I've been here that only took cash. So don't worry about this too much, but just be sure you have cash on you just in case you find that restaurant that only takes cash. Next, if you're going during the summer and you're planning on going to the beach, make sure you have water shoes. So I've stressed this before in other videos in this series because it's so important, and I want to avoid you this excruciating pain of walking on the rocky beaches in Croatia. Make sure you pack water shoes. They're inexpensive and they're pretty light, so it's not a pain in the butt to pack. And also, if you're planning on going to the beach, make sure you pack or buy a towel, a comfy towel to lay on those rocks when you're at the beach. That's one thing about Croatia. I had to get used to the rocky beaches, and the beaches are so beautiful here. So make sure you pack those two things so you can have a great time. The last thing you should avoid in Croatia, and this one goes mainly to my other Black travelers, is taking stairs personally. When we first got here to Croatia, we would get so many stairs. And by the way, I'm traveling Croatia with my sister and her 2 kids. We kind of took it personally, and we were like, why are they looking at us? And I think this had to do with the fact that we couldn't travel for about 1.5 years. So we didn't go to any foreign countries for 1.5 years because of COVID. So I wasn't used to getting stares while traveling. But after about a week or so, we realized how friendly Croatian people are, and realized, hey, they're probably looking at us because there's not a lot of Black travelers here in Croatia. And definitely, if there's not a lot of Black travelers, there's probably not a lot of Black children here in Croatia, so they're probably just looking at us because they just don't see many people that look like us. So we realized we couldn't take it personally, especially since we met so many amazing people here and we had such a great time here. The hospitality here is amazing. So there's no way we could have taken those stares personally based on our experience. So guys, I hope this video helped. If you have any mistakes to avoid in Croatia, please do leave those in the comments. Make sure to check out my playlist below on how to travel in Croatia on a budget. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and hit the notification bell so you can be alerted whenever I make a video. Bye!